Standardized testing in our schools has been a contentious issue among parents, students, and educators. A recently formed commission will report their findings in a report this July. Ken, what do you think the report will reveal?
Well, I can tell you what I hope it'll reveal, and that's that standardized testing is really a waste of time. You know, we have spending so much time trying to teach the kids how to pass a stupid test that we don't spend any time teaching them how to actually learn stuff.
Well, and you know, I think there's a quandary that comes into play with standardized tests. You know, having a kid that's going through the school system, I definitely agree it's a waste of time. The quandary is any department of education has to be able to gauge at what level the curriculum is being taught correctly across an area, whether it's a state, whether it's a country, whatever the case is. So I don't think at this point anybody's come up with a good measure for doing that. Because if you're relying on self-reporting, then you could have some area of the country or some area of the state that has completely dismal teaching or based. They're meeting the curriculum at a very dismal level, and yet if they're judging based on their local platform, they have no way of knowing how they're performing against other areas.
Well, couldn't there be a way to redesign how they administer the test, though? Because kids learn differently. So, you know, maybe not completely taking the testing away, but just offering different options like a project or something else other than just a multiple choice test, because it's not just the teaching to the test part that takes up a lot of time, but it's the actual testing itself. It completely screws up the school schedules and throws kids out of whack. I mean, it's just, I don't think it's the best way to measure someone's intelligence.
Yeah.
That's all
I agree 100%. I mean, you know, I think the old saying was something to the effect of if you compare a fish and a monkey and judge them on their ability to climb a tree, the fish will forever think it's stupid.
Right.
Okay, but you know, but then if you try to make the monkey swim, the monkey ain't go swim, but the fish sure can. So it's a matter of, you know, not just looking at a standardized testing, but you know, gauging. You know, somebody's going to have different abilities than somebody else.
Right.
Well, and I think, I mean, you guys are touching on an important point, which is that you have to have different learning paths based on not necessarily ability, but the way that people learn.
Right.
So what I think would work maybe a little bit better is if you have a standardized curriculum to some degree, and you have to allow teachers to have some latitude, then have a more organic testing environment over time. We don't need to do this every single year. Maybe we test for a certain piece. And it doesn't have to be the problem. And I think, you know, one thing to touch upon is the fact that this introduces a lot of stress into the kids' lives.
It does.
So because you know that on the week of X, you're going to have all these tests, and your entire life depends on them and everything. Your teachers will be very mad if you do poorly on that and everything else, versus kind of gauging the performance and the skill level of people over time. Over the period of many years or even longer to determine where they are. If somebody is doing well in history in 5th grade, chances are they did well in 4th grade and 6th grade, right? So you don't need to test on that, or in mathematics or whatever the case is, every single year.
Right.
But isn't the other issue that not only is there a difference in how people learn, but there's also a difference in someone's, and I'll call it a skill, to be able to successfully take a multi-choice test.
Right.
I know from teaching college classes that there were students that regardless of the fact that they understood the information, they did poorly on the testing.
Well, and you know, and the workforce is the same thing, because you know, you're going to have some people that absolutely excel and perform amazingly at a job, but when you try to put them in an interview, they do horrible in an interview.
Absolutely.
Right.
So you know, maybe you know, specialized tests. Okay, in other words, instead of having one standardized test for everybody, have specialized tests for what people you know, are actually good at. You know, and we already have that some, because we have the SATs for those who are going to college. We have the ASVAB for those who are going into the armed forces. All right, we already have that kind of stuff. Let's do a little bit more of that.
And I think you're hitting on something that's a very important point. I think one of the reasons we don't succeed educationally, certainly not in the primary and secondary education, we do very well worldwide in college education, is the fact that we have a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
And we treat somebody who doesn't succeed at that, but who may be very good in a vocational environment, as being a lesser person in society or lesser person in the schools. You look at a country like Germany that actually has aptitude testing relatively early, which determines the path of those kids. And then somebody who goes to a vocational school
Right.
has a good career path where they can make a good living doing something that's very important. First of all, they're helping their industry by helping them compete in a world market by producing very high quality goods, which lower wage countries can't.
Right.
So thereby maintaining their manufacturing. By the same token, reducing the stress on those students and putting them someplace where they succeed, and really letting then the gymnasiums, the advanced schools, focus on the kids that really do well in that environment.
Right. Yeah. And at the same time, we also need to make sure those tests stay up to date. Okay.
Right.
So, for example, when I was in school, I took some tests. I think it was either in middle school or high school to try to determine, what should my career future be? What should I go to college for? And there wasn't a single computer-related thing on the test because it was so out of date.
Right.
So, that didn't help me at all because I'm in information technology. I'm in cybersecurity.
Right.
I just hope that the commission also asks and listens to the teachers, because they're the ones on the front lines. They're the ones that are interacting with the students on a daily basis, and a lot of teachers are opposed to just standardized testing. So I think that really speaks to the fact that maybe this isn't the best option. Maybe it's not working as well as they thought it would.
Well, I think you're dealing with a situation where you basically have politicians dictating how the school should operate. And that doesn't seem to me as a very good approach to doing things.
Unfortunately.
Well, we know that Dr. Wilcox is serving on the commission that's studying this, and they're studying all 24 counties, and they're supposed to have this report out. So it'll be interesting to see, number one, what the report says, and it'll be interesting to see will it be a report that just sits on a shelf somewhere, or will we actually do something about it?
And wasn't it just, I think, last week or the week before that Washington County was ranked, last in childhood literacy preparedness or something like that?
I didn't see that.
So, I mean, this is really, hits close to home for us in Washington County.
The sad part is, and having had a child that's been in Washington County Public Schools for almost 10 years now, and also having a lot of experience with other school systems around the state, I think Washington County schools are actually really good in terms of level of education. Now, is that uniform across the entire school population? Probably not. But I certainly think we have the resources to be able to.
Well, and I think some of the things that frankly, Dr. Wilcox is either starting or is carrying on from the previous superintendent are going to help that, like the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts, like these boutique schools, if you will, that we're talking about, like the technical high school. I mean, as you mentioned, being a plumber is not for me, but guess what? Those folks make good money.
Right, and kids learn differently. So.
Yes, they do, and have different interests.
Absolutely. All right, next up on the flip side, the opioid addictions plaguing our country. We return in 3 minutes.